Hello, welcome to the Nigerian Investor Podcast, TNI for short. This is the unofficial podcast of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I am your host, Mudiaga, and my co-host, Mr. Ibaemi Aye for short. TNI podcast is dedicated to stimulating a renewed enthusiasm among the general public in Nigeria with regards to investing on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Ultimately, the goal of TNI is to see many young Nigerians from all walks of life, both at home and in the diasporas, actively participating in the activities of the Nigerian stock market. Before we go further, we would like to place on record a disclaimer. TNI podcast is solely for the purpose of education and not a replacement for professional financial advice. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nigerian Investors Podcast. Our listeners, we are very happy to have you once more on this episode. And as usual, it's me and Aye that is here today.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here once again.
Yeah, nice to have you, Aye. Today is another exciting topic as part of the series that we're currently dealing on, which is the benefit of being an investor in the stock market. The topic we want to talk about today is referred to as scheme of arrangement. It's interesting because it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen on the floor of the stock market. And there's a company that is currently undergoing this process. And we thought it twice to bring that company to the forefront and discuss the company, then talk about the scheme of arrangement as far as this company is concerned. Aye, could you start by telling us what company it is and maybe a brief background of the company? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Modi. So today we'll be looking at Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC, and this company is one of the larger, fast-moving consumer goods companies listed on the Nigerian stock market. It was founded in West Africa by George Komataros, the Greek billionaire, in 1960 as a private limited liability company. But in 1978, it became a public limited liability company after listing on the floor of the Nigerian stock market. The business started as a wheat milling company. In fact, it was the first of its kind in Nigeria from a single business entity. The Flour Mills of Nigeria's operations are categorized into four major sectors: food, sugar, agro-allied, and support services. I think, Mudi, maybe you want to break it down into these services and tell us more about these different sectors that this large FMCG company plays in.
Okay. Thank you, Aye. The food sector has subdivisions. It is the most prominent sector of flour mills of Nigeria due to its household name, Golden Penny. The subsectors include Golden Penny spaghetti, noodles, the Golden Penny twist, and the Golden Penny macaroni. We also have another sector that is known as the Boer food sector. Boer foods, we commonly refer to them in Nigeria as swallow. And they include Golden Penny Semovita, Golden Penny Vita, Golden Penny Masavita, and Golden Penny Gari. And we have the flour subsector under the food sector. Flour Mills of Nigeria Group is one of the largest flour milling company in the world with a daily capacity of 8,000 metric tons. Golden Penny flour comes in different variants that include the Golden Penny prime flour that is mainly used for making bread. We also have the Golden Penny whole wheat flour that is used for baking brown and wheat bread. And we have the Eagles wheat flour, the soft biscuit flour. Others include the multipurpose flour. The next main sector is the agro-allied sector. This sector caters for production of raw materials that are needed to produce various brands of their food sector. And there's something that we refer to in the production of goods and services. We call it vertical integration. Flour Mill has been a company that has successfully engaged in this vertical integration. We're going to explain what vertical integration is all about towards the end of this episode. Moving on, we're talking about the second sector, which is the agro-allied sector. We've already established that it caters for the production of raw materials needed to produce various brands of their food sector. And this sector under this company is mainly situated in Niger State. They have large hectares of land there, and I think they started this sector in 1978. And this sector has subdivision as well. We're going to look at some of the subdivisions. The first subdivision we want to look at is the feeds and proteins. This subdivision produces animal feed for poultry and fishery. Some of the products include chick mash, broiler super starter, broiler finishers. Others include layers mash, extruded catfish juvenile, extruded tilapia catfish, and growers mash. All these products are made under the brand name called Top Feed. People that are involved production of poultry and catfish, they we know this brand. It's a very common brand. Another sector under the agro-allied sector is the starches. This subdivision is divided into subdivision further. We have the Premium Cassava Products Limited, which is a downstream sector, and we have the Shoa Golden Farm Limited, which is an upstream sector. Products under these subdivisions are dairy, cassava, flour, and industrial starch. Another subdivision under is the agro-allied division. We have the agro input and distribution. Products here are manufactured and distributed under the Godi Fertilizer Company Limited. This subsidiary of Flour Mills of Nigeria was established in 1997 with fertilizer blending distribution and supply as its core business. It has two blending plant facilities, one in Kaduna State and another one in Lagos State. Together, these two facilities, they have a combined blending capacity of 450,000 MTPA. Some of the products that they make include the NPK brand of fertilizer. NPK stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And this product varies in terms of concentration as regards to these elements. For instance, the NPK 20-10-10 fertilizer product simply means that there is 20% of nitrogen, 10% of potassium, and 10% of phosphorus. Then there's another product that is named NPK 27-13-13. That is 27% nitrogen, 13% phosphorus, and 30% potassium. We also have the NPK 15-15-15. That's equal percentages across all three elements. And finally, there is this urea 4600. This is purely just urea, no NPK. We'll move on to the third division, which is the sugar division. In this division, Flour Mills of Nigeria produces finished variety of sugar products, and they have a farm where they produce the raw material, the sugar cane, for them to be able to produce this produce. And the finished product is under this sector include the Golden Penny Premium White Granulated Sugar and the Golden Penny Granulated Brown Sugar as well. They also produce sugar cubes, which are the Golden Penny Premium White Sugar Cubes. Finally, we're going to look at the last sector, which is the fourth sector, known as the support services. This segment of Flour Mills of Nigeria provides logistics and related services. As usual, is further divided into three divisions or subdivisions, as you have it. The first division is known as the Bako subdivision. This is a leading producer of premium bags that meet various individual and corporate packaging needs with products such as Bako Super Sack. Everybody knows about Bako Super Sack. That is for sure. We also have Bako robes. We have Bako carrier bags, Bako shopping bags, Bako laminate and thread. Then the second subdivision under the support services is the Apapa Bulk Terminal Limited. This was incorporated in 2005. That's 2005. This subdivision is a special purpose vehicle that manages and operates two terminals, Terminal A and B of the Apapa Port Complex. I think the federal government back in 2005 gave concession to some private entities to manage these terminals. Flour Mills of Nigeria was able to get these two terminals. And the services that they provide include warehousing, open storage, packaging, repair facilities, and office complexes. And finally, other support services. The third subdivision is the Golden Transport Division. This is the last segment in the multi-segmental businesses of Flour Mills of Nigeria. It was incorporated in 2008 formally. That is, It has been in existence right from the inception of this company in 1960, but formally it was incorporated in 2008. It has over 1,000 trucks that they use in haulage services and distribution nationwide as well. In total, there are about 22 units that makes up this great company. And it is one of the reasons why they want to do this scheme of arrangement. That is, the majority shareholder wants to buy the minority shareholder out. And once that is done, they will delist from the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And once they delist from the stock exchange, they will restructure the company. According to the chairman of the company, the plan is to reduce the 22 units to five major sectors in order for proper integration as well as to increase production capacity. That's their target. I think they are targeting that they should be able to scale up production from about currently 100,000 ton to about 400,000 ton by the time they restructure this company. And as soon as they restructure the company, they're going to be listed back on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and they're also looking at another stock exchange. So they're going to be a dual listed company. That is, they're going to be listed in two exchanges, which is common. We have some companies in Nigeria right now that are dual listed. ET Africa quickly comes to mind. Is listed on the floor of the London Stock Exchange as well as the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And we also have Seplat Oil. Seplat is also listed on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as well as the London Stock Exchange. That's it for my end. Aye, we take over the next stage, and after which contribute. Over to you, Aye. Thank you very much.
So Mudi, yeah, just to add that this is probably one of the most diversified FMCG companies listed on the market currently, and it's always been a question for me on efficiency, whether this company is running its business efficiently because you see, they're a floor milling company, but then they have subdivisions in logistics, port terminal management, bagging, and all the likes. So I guess that's one of the major reasons why we're having this session is to discuss this scheme of arrangement because I see one of the objectives of this scheme of arrangement is that they become a more streamlined operation. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're very correct. All right. That's very important what you just said now, because if you look at the company from the outside without really delving into their business, you wouldn't really see what they do. And from what we've just elaborated on this company, you can see that they've spread their tentacles across almost all aspects of our daily lives in Nigeria. They are into food, which there's always a demand for food. They're into packaging, there's always demand for packaging. People need bags and all that. They are into haulage services, which is transportation services. They are also into import and export services, where they provide services to people that are importing and exporting goods to Nigeria. This is a company that is well diversified. The reason we're looking at this company is because they want to delist. The information at first was not very clear, but they want to delist and relist again. If a company wants to delist from the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, what it means is that somebody or business entity has an interest to buy out all the shareholders in order for this company to become a sole ownership of that entity. One of the ways that you can delist from the stock market is by following the process of a scheme of arrangement. We want to explain what scheme of arrangement is, and Aye will do justice to that as usual. Aye, can you tell us what was the scheme of arrangement? What's it all about?
A scheme of arrangement is a process that allows a company to sort of restructure its assets and liabilities or its capital. And it usually see this take place during when a company that is publicly listed is about to be acquired by another company like Moody just said. You usually see this during takeovers and mergers and acquisitions and things like that. And so one of the key features of a scheme of arrangement is that there's the binding feature. And once a scheme of arrangement has been approved by the courts, it is binding on all shareholders, even those who are voting against it. The scheme arrangement can also help a company preserve its value, the value of its assets and liabilities. And it requires at least 75% of majority shareholders to vote in favor of the scheme for the scheme to actually take place. Yeah, so shareholders will then receive payments of the amount that was announced.
All right. So that's a brief explanation of what scheme of arrangement is all about. In addition to what I said, A scheme of arrangement is a court approved process. What happened is that the entity or the majority shareholder that wants to buy out the company in the scheme of arrangement has to approach the company itself and provide their offer to the company. And this offer is usually at a premium. In this instance for FML, the company that wants to buy out the remaining minority shareholder is already a shareholder in the company. I think they have about 2.95% of FML shares. So they are the majority shareholder.
Yeah, it's very interesting that it usually plays out like this because there has to be an incentive for shareholders to even want to participate in this scheme of arrangement. So that's often why you see companies tend to um, want to purchase these shares at a premium so that they can entice shareholders to want to buy. But of course, shareholders still have to decide whether or not this premium is actually worth it to them or if they are going to, if they would rather stay holding the company for the long term, because at the end of the day, it's always a question of opportunity cost.
Moving on with this, can you quickly just tell the listeners about the timeline
Uh,
of the FML scheme of arrangement?
All right. As of the 24th of September, Excelsior Shipping Company Limited, by the way, is currently the majority shareholder of Floor Mills of Nigeria. They dropped a notice on the floor of the stock market that they were offering to buy the minority shareholders out so that they can take 100% ownership of Floor Mills of Nigeria. And they were offering 70 naira per share to acquire the shares of the minority shareholders. So what's interesting to note is that currently Excelsior owns approximately 63% of Floor Mills. That means that roughly 37% is owned by minority shareholders. So they're offering to buy out these minority shareholders at 70 naira per share, which is a premium on the price the stock. Yeah, okay. So the price was trading roughly around 55 naira per share as of the time the announcement was made. We also got a notice of a court ordered meeting that was dropped by Floor Mills of Nigeria on the floor of the stock markets. And they are proposing that the court ordered meeting, which is basically when this scheme of arrangement will be considered by minority shareholders, and that meeting will be held on the 14th of November. And I think they've even changed the venue of the meeting. Let me just confirm. They did change the venue of the meeting. The meeting is still taking place on Thursday, the 14th of November, but it's no longer taking place in Eco Hotel Conventional Center, but now it's going to be taking place in Balmoral Convention Center, when the minority shareholders will have to come in and vote for or against this scheme of arrangement. And minority shareholders that can't make it to the meeting are advised to appoint a proxy who can vote on their behalf on the scheme of arrangement. I think those are the details.
Yeah, those are the details. Thank you very much. Now, from what I said, the majority shareholder that wants to buy out the minority shareholder has offered a premium of 70 naira per share. So for every share of FML that you own, they are willing to pay you 70 naira for you to forgo that share. And as at the date they announced it, FML was trading at 55 naira per share. If you do your calculation, that's 15 naira per share in terms of appreciation. And once the meeting has taken place and the minority shareholders they voted in favor of the scheme of arrangement, the company will have to inform their registrar, and the registrar will start preparing the list of the shareholders whose name appeared on the register on the date that the trading of the shares were suspended. Those shareholders will now be subject to completing a form, the scheme of arrangement form that they have to fill. After that, registrar will pay out this premium, the 70 naira per share, to all the shareholders that are qualified to receive this premium. Without further ado, I would like Aye to mention what vertical integration is all about, because we did say that this company is vertically integrated.
So basically, when we talk about vertical integration, we're talking about when a company controls or owns different aspects of its supply chain. When companies do business, there's typically a process where, first of all, you get the raw materials, and these raw materials are processed into finished goods. And then these finished goods are transported to the wholesalers, who then sell it to the retailers, who then sell it to the final consumers. So there's a entire supply chain between where a product is manufactured and then when it is finally delivered to the customers. But when we talk about vertical integration, we're talking about companies that control different parts of this production process, right? So you could start from the raw materials procurement or the raw material sourcing, and it could end in the retail, the final retailing to the consumers, right? So technically, we break down vertical integration into three main categories, right? So we have what we call backward integration, right? And typically, this is when the company tries to, or rather, invest in actively controlling the production of the raw materials required to manufacture its product. So in the case of company like Flour Mills of Nigeria, where they're into the manufacturing of food products, basically like you mentioned, Moody, you have pasta, you have the noodles, you have the swallows, and all the rest. So there are different raw materials that is required to make all of this. Sugar cane, you have things like cassava, you have things like soya, and all of that. And basically, when a company is doing this backwards integration, they are going backwards and sourcing the raw materials directly by owning the process of cultivating or generating those raw materials. Another good example is the case of Dangote Sugar, which has also started its own backward integration project, which aims to farm the sugar canes locally and source the raw sugar there before it then begins the processing of the raw sugar. So that's basically what backward integration means, right? It means the company is moving a step backwards in the production of its products or services. But when we talk about forward integration, now we're talking about the company moving forward in the distribution and retailing of its own products or services. So what we're talking about here is basically logistics in simple terms, or just basically how to distribute the product that it has made or the services that it should render to the consumers. Really, in this case, we see companies maybe opening wholesale stores or retail outlets for its products so that it can bring the products quicker or faster to the consumers. And we also have what we call complete integration. This is when a company controls all stages of its supply chain, from the raw material procurement down to the final delivery to the consumers. And I believe this is what Flormin is trying to achieve, this total control of its supply chain. The advantage of this to the consumers is that when a company is able to do this successfully, it can lead to significant economies of scale for the company, and which can then lead to a reduction of costs for the consumers, because the company is able to control all these different aspects of its supply chain. For now, Nigeria is mostly importing some of these raw materials that some of the FMCG companies are using to manufacture their goods and services. And I think we've had this conversation also, Moody, where you mentioned that you're very sensitive to companies that have to source forex in order to import these raw materials. And this is a very good reason why backwards and forward integration is very important. Because when the company begins to actively invest in sourcing those raw materials, especially now in this period, source those raw materials cheap and source them locally, it then helps them reduce this exposure to foreign exchange volatility. So it's a very good thing that companies engage in this process. Of course, it's not always advantageous to a company to get involved in this backwards or forward integration. Sometimes it's always more efficient for third parties to handle maybe logistics, but sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's useful for companies to do this themselves. And we are always standing on the principle of, if it's good for the consumers and it's good for the business, it's good for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. That is a wonderful explanation of what vertical integration is, and is a beautiful thing. It also has its own disadvantage anyway. But the thing is that vertical integration helps to maximize the power of the company in the marketplace, because it helps to streamline the process and reduces reliance on external suppliers. External suppliers could fail you. There could be issues of accessing forests if you're sourcing your raw material from abroad, and those exposure could also eat into your bottom line when you're trying to generate revenue and all that, which is something that could eat into the profit of a company and makes the company not to really be as successful in terms of making profit as it should. So it's a good thing that most companies are looking at vertical integration. The difficulty with vertical integration is that you need more manpower, more labor, more expertise, more planning for you to be able to integrate vertically. especially when you're looking at backward integration. In the case of FML, it has to do with producing these raw material, which are agricultural products, the corn, the cassava, the sugarcane. These products, you need to get a fertile land. You need to make sure the land is secured, is safe from um, aggressive behavior. These clashes that you have between cattle raiders and farmers. Those are some of the things you have to consider too. You also need to consider other things like diseases that can affect this crop and all that. So you must have this expertise in this aspect for you to be able to vertically integrate your your company. But this company, they've been doing it for years. So it's something that is not new to them and they've been doing it very well. It's a company that I would be interested in investing in because I know their exposure to forest is very minimal. That's something you need to understand about vertical integration.
All right, just to add, this is one of the benefits of investing in the stock market because when you invest in really good companies, such as, and we're not suggesting that floor mill is, but just to give you an idea of how so good some companies can be. Often we see this kind of cases where they want to delist, and of course, like we said, they'll often offer premiums to shareholders. I mean, this is usually to incentivize shareholders to want to participate, but obviously, you tend to see this happen mostly with companies that have something going on for them. And it's interesting that Flormill is doing this, and they have plans of even relisting on the stock market, hopefully in a much more better, much more efficient shape. I would like to see what they released as. I would like to see how efficient the operations have gone, and I would like to see even what price that they would like to be relisting as. But it's very, very interesting to see this play out, and I hope more companies can also learn from this how to um, basically leverage the market, take advantage of the market, and use that as an opportunity to um, basically vertically integrate, go into the production of these raw materials, go into the logistic arm, and consolidate all of that into making a truly, truly successful business. I would love to see more of that play out. But it's also a good thing for shareholders to pay attention to this kind of cues because looking at what's playing out right now with floor mills, right? Shareholders are going to get benefits from the company post if this scheme of arrangement should play out. So they're going to get benefits, and then the company released, and it will be interesting to see how they released us. But I'm being optimistic and hoping that they released at a much more efficient and far more profitable business when they release. So yeah, this has been a very, very fun episode. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of insights, and hopefully the next time we see a scheme of arrangement like this, it's always going to be a question of what are the benefits for shareholders pre scheme of arrangement and post scheme of arrangement when they've eventually delist, or if at all they will even release to the stock market. Yeah.
Once again, thank you, Aye, for that wonderful insight. All right, before we conclude this episode, we'll be introducing a new segment. This segment is just to update listeners on the activities and performance of stock on the stock market. The segment is going to look at the top 10 performing and underperforming stocks on a weekly basis. This is as a result of the last episode that we talked about capital appreciation and gains, in which we said capital appreciation is one of the reasons, or rather the main reasons, why people invest in various asset classes. People buy land mostly due to the fact that they want the value of the land to increase in order to make capital gain. People invest in cryptos also for capital appreciation. The stock market is not left out. We even went as far as talking about Ponzi scheme, that the main reason why people fall for Ponzi scheme is the lure of making astronomical capital gains. That's why they get involved. So if you look at it, every investment opportunity, the sole desire of the investor is to make gains. That's why we'll be looking at this segment subsequently. This segment, we look at the performance of the Nigerian Stock Exchange in the previous week. And the previous week for this episode is Monday, October 28th, 2024 to Friday, November 1st, 2024. And the 10 performing stock on the floor of the stock market for this period include Transcorp, which appreciated by 314%. Unicel is number 2 with appreciation of 60.57%. John Hort, 20%, UPL, 18.28%, Livestock, 12.32%, NNFM, 11.76%. Vitafoam is on number 7 with 10, Aviation, 8 with 10% as well. And Sun, and lastly, Sunu Assurance Company, 10% as well. Because the last three companies appreciated by 10% over the week, we're going to include two more. These three, the last three that took the 7th position are Vitafoam, Sky Aviation, and Suno Assurance. Number 9 will be Cone Oil. Appreciation is by 9.14%. And number 10 is TIP, and it appreciated by 7.48%. If you had invested in any of these stock that we just mentioned on Monday, last week, 28 October 2024, and you sold them off on Friday, November 1st, 2024, you would have made these capital gains in percentage that we just announced now. For every top performing stock, they are usually top on the performing stock as well. So let's quickly look at the top 10 on the performing stock for that same week. Number 1 is Arade Holdings. Arade underperformed by minus 25.75%. Caverton is number 2 by minus 20%. LRLX number 3 minus 12.59%. Regal Alliance number 4 minus 12.50%. Royal Alex number 5 minus 11.27%. Veritas Capital took number 6 with minus 11.25%. Boasimate 11.09%. Lasaco minus 10.84%. Guinea Insurance minus 10%. And lastly, and number 10 is Cadbury with depreciation of minus 9.8%. Similarly, if you had invested in any of these companies on Monday, October 28th, and you decide to sell off this same stock as well by November 1st, 2024, you would have made a capital loss in this range. And as usual, I like to compare. If you look at the highest losing company, Arade lost 25.75% in the same week period that the Transcorp gained 301.08%. What you should deduce from this is that the company that made the highest capital appreciation dwarfed the company that made the highest loss. That tells you something that capital appreciation, if you do your homework very well, you might probably be able to get it right. Thank you for that. Thank you, our listeners. We'll say bye for now until we meet again next week. Have a nice one.
Have a nice one too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nigerian Investors Podcast. We hope in this episode you've learned something very valuable that you can use in your day-to-day investing life. We also want to encourage you to share our episodes on all social media platforms. Share with friends or family. Never can tell whose life you'll be changing positively. Our social media handles can be found on the show note below this episode. We also have a website where you can listen to our episode free of charge. For those who don't have subscription to podcast hosting sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, you can listen to our podcast on YouTube free of charge. We have an email address. You can send us an email if you have any question, any query or contribution. And if you also want to be interviewed, you can also reach out to us. Email address tnipodcaster@gmail.com. Continue to share and like and spread the news to all friends and loved ones. Thank you. TNI Podcast is produced by Aye and Moody. Thank you once more. Until we meet again, have a nice one. Bye.